Back on the right stand, and let's quickly look at the number of times China has backstabbed India. Ladies and gentlemen, 1988, China agreed and mutually accepted border solution. The current status, China doesn't even accept the McMahon line as the border or the line, and it continues to remain ambiguous. 1993, peace accord was signed with China to maintain peace at the border, and of course we know what is happening as far as along the entire line of actual control. Regular incursions, salami slicing continues. 1996, China signed the confidence building measures, CBMs, with India. Now, current status, absolutely India facing a two-front war situation with China increasingly increasing its footprint over in Gilgit-Baltistan on the guise of protecting its CPEC project. 2003, special representative mechanism to resolve border issue. 22 rounds so far, and China's expansionist drive continues. So you just want to keep you involved in talk and engaging in just going roundabout, doing nothing. And at the end of the day, they continue to push their agenda. Political parameters were agreed upon for settlement of dispute in 2005. China still following the salami slicing strategy or policy. And if you look at April 2020, the latest, China-India celebrated 70th anniversary of economic ties, and then immediately in June, clashes with Indian Army at the Galwan Valley. The recent Tawang one comes at the time when, on the sidelines of G20, when President Xi Jinping shook hands with Prime Minister Narendra Modi, and immediately after that, Tawang happens. So then, can Wang Yi's Bhai tone that's been adopted in his comment, can it be actually trusted, or how should India read this? Let's go across to a very august panel joining us. Ambassador Anil Trigunayat, former diplomat, is joining us. We have Dr. Roger Liu, Associate Professor, Flame University, Dr. Shrikant Kondapalli, Professor in China Studies, JNU, he's a China expert, and of course, Lieutenant General K.J. Singh, former General Officer Commanding in Chief of the Western Command. Namaste, gentlemen. Thank you very, very much. Let me start with Roger Liu. Roger, good to have you with us. How would you read Wang Yi's statement? Should we be worried? Should we be ready for immediate intensity of conflict the moment China talks peace?
Thank you, Anand, for having me. I'm sorry I'm in Thailand, so I hope the connection is good.
Yes, it is.
Well, I think Wang Yi's Hindi Chini Pai Pai has been said or mentioned for so many diplomatic occasions. Well, after 1962, but nobody believes it now. Well, I don't know why Wang Yi bring this up again and again. Maybe he tried to make a new situation after the 20th Party's Congress to try to create some kind of new opportunities to bring India and China together to fulfill what he has called the Pan-Asianism or the Pan-Asian history, the situation between India and China. But I think we have to be cautious about this because, well, Jaishankar has been talking about creating more mind space of China. Well, when we were doing the foreign policies with them, we have to make them recognize our status. But we have to recognize this. The Communist Party, the authoritarianism, the authoritarian regime only respect one word, power. So we will have to, if we really want to have good negotiation terms with China on LOC affairs or other Indian Ocean related security affairs, we have to make sure that we have the strength, the military strength, the power backing us. This is very important. So that's why we joined Quad. We have been doing a lot of military escalation or upgrade for many things. That's very important. So I think, well, when Wang Yi brings up this, we have to see what China will do after this slogan. But the past experience has proven that, well, when China say that, they always try to backstab us. They try to show some, friendly gestures in front, but at the backside, actually, this is a threat. One example that I want to give you is that in 2018, they talk about China-India Plus. Now they're trying to bring this up again. China-India Plus is that China and India should work together on Indian Ocean regions related security affairs, which means that when we are trying to get security collaborations with our neighbors like Nepal, like Sri Lanka, like Bangladesh and Maldives, China has to be a participant as well. Why should we let China to go into the game that we have been? This is the sphere of influence traditionally for India. Right. And now China invites itself inside of this game and say, well, whenever you are collaborating with your smaller neighbors, you have to work with us.
Right.
This is not Hindi chini pai pai. This is something they are trying to backstab us again. So we have to be very careful about this.
Sound and strong ties. That's what Anil Trigunayat he talks about. He's now a Politburo member. So, what do you see in layers? Should we be now on red alert? Because the moment they've always put out these tones. See, 2018 came after Doklam. So every time, and then after that we had April to June in 2020 itself, we saw what their intention is.
Well, you are absolutely right. I mean, every time we have had the talks with them or some kind of a friendly gesture on both sides is seen at the leadership level, there is always an incursion or there is some kind of a problem that happens on our borders. So, I mean, we need to be always on the guard for this. While dialogue, diplomacy, everything is continuing. And what Wang is trying to say is that because we are continuing to talk, that means things are okay. But that is not the case. So India has to develop its comprehensive national power and will be able to, like we have been giving eyeball to eyeball responses to them wherever they are trying to occur. But that's not going to stop. That will continue forever because China does not look at India as an equal country. You know, if Wang is saying that we need to work together, the ties can be consolidated, we can, they're committed to stability or whatever it is, but they do exactly the opposite. And we have seen it is happening repeatedly again and again. So what Dr. Jaishankar clearly said, his 3M's approach, like that the mutual interest, mutual sensitivity and mutual respect. Now, that's what, if they really are interested in doing that, but China has never looked at India from the prism of an equal power or a power that is, China is definitely feeling a bit constrained right now because India has been responding in kind to whatever China has been trying to do and seeing that India's economy is growing, its international heft has increased, it is now going to host the G20 or whatever. So all these things are adding to India's stature. And Prime Minister Modi, of course, has been a strong leader, and that's something that bugs them. So they are doing exactly what Pakistan does. You know, that every time we talk to Pakistan, you have an attack waiting to happen. That's precisely what this is happening. But still, India is preferring the way.
See, currently in the scheme of things, strategically, if you were to see, Pakistan is irrelevant as far as India is concerned. India is now talking with so many other nations at a different level, and Pakistan is nowhere in sight, Ambassador Trigunayat. And point is that if we want China to treat India as an equal, we both share 1/5 of the world's population. That's the current aspect. We are also growing at a much faster pace than China is now. Yes, China is far ahead, developed, Dr. Shrikant Kondapalli. They have a few, at least a decade worth of speed ahead of us, but we are playing catch up. But when is this tone going to change? Should India now start being proactive rather than reactive? Should India also tell the Chinese that we can not only defend ourselves or push back, we can also flex muscle. We can also try and reclaim what you have taken away from us in the past. How would you see Wang Yi's statement? Yes, Dr. Kondapalli, can you hear me? Well, I'm going to check with Dr. Kondapalli if the audio is through with him. General KJ Singh, would you want to take that, sir?
Thank you, Anand. Jai Hind.
Jai Hind, sir.
With China, we have been following a policy of trust but verify. But in the past, now the policy that we follow is trust at your own risk. You can't take the risk. You just can't take the risk. For us who are on the ground, the soldiers, you have pointed out that we have done 7 agreements, 7 of them. But see, the core agreement that has to be done is the line which has to be defined. Unless you define that line, what are you guarding? What are you trying to contest? So China is reticent to define that line. We are saying good fences make good neighbors. So let's define the line. And China believes in the policy that one mountain cannot contain 2 tigers. And it thinks that it is a super tiger. So India has no standing. So my advice, Anand, is very strongly that we should not trust, we should be always, and in any case, we cannot take our focus away from infrastructure building. That is a thing which is on the roll, and it should continue rolling. And we should enhance the pace. See, they have set up zyokangs, those border villages. Now, in this case, Yangtze also, the border village is right next door. It provides a launch pad. So China has increased problems and complexities for us. They have brought their launch pads well forward. They have reduced the reaction time. So we'll have to remain vigilant. We have to enhance surveillance, and we just cannot take a chance, Anand. We have to remain on guard for always.
Should India also, Dr. Rajulu, talk and act like China does? So make all the right noises, or don't talk at all, and continue to act and behave like the Chinese do, like the PLA does. So move in on certain areas, try and push the Chinese soldiers to a certain bush, try and deliberately go back and push them back towards certain junctions, reclaim the Y junction, patrol areas, start motoring like the PLA does. Give them a little bit of a shock and tell them that we are as good as you are, if not better. Because reaction time from India has improved. We saw that in Tawang, at Yangtze. But should we also kind of behave like the Chinese do, for them to start respecting us and looking at India not as a smaller entity or a non-entity to an equal adversary?
Thank you, Anand. I think, like you have indicated, the deterrence, the effectiveness of deterrence is very important for India to consider as well. Well, we don't have to act like China as brutally, but we have to consider in a more cohesively or more comprehensively strategic way. Say, for example, that, of course, to increase the rapid reaction at the LAC is very important. But at the same time, we have to have some strategic supports, for example, in our military strength. And the most important thing is what the Chinese has been doing is, the late Brzezinski, the former national security advisor of the U.S., has likened the Chinese strategy as playing the game of Go. So the game of Go is not like chess.
Yes.
Chess is one-on-one game. But the game of Go is that you create another battlefield in another place that your enemy or your rival will not expect. So what we are doing here is, instead of focusing, at the same time we are focusing on LAC, we should also focus on somewhere else. We should also focus on the front of international organizations. We should also focus on the front of other areas like Taiwan Strait, like in East Asia, South China Sea, and in all other places. We have to play the chess, play the Go like the Chinese does. We don't just focus on LAC because, correct. You don't get bogged down into strategic passiveness by your enemy. You have to decide the battlefield. So I think India should look for new battlefield as well.
Right, and not just look for new battlefields or be aware of new battlefields that China can create, but also create other battlefields to keep the PLA engaged, or to try and let the PLA know that, listen, we are wiser to your game. This Go aspect, this Go theory is a very interesting one that you bring to the table, Dr. Rajulu. That's why I really enjoy talking China with you. We've just got to interrupt this conversation because we've got news coming through from Pakistan. Now, I have limited time. Now, the Saudi embassy in Pakistan has warned Saudi nationals, or Saudi citizens in Pakistan, not to go outside. Now, this is amid the prevailing security situation around Islamabad. Abhishek now joins us with more details. Is this because of the TTP, the Tehrik-e-Taliban Pakistan, intensifying its attacks? What is the reason why this advisory has been issued? This follows after the US and the UK also issued similar advisories.
Also, Anand, in the last 1 week or so, Pakistan has faced over a dozen attacks from multiple terrorist organizations, especially in terror groups from Balochistan. And in the area near Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, TTP has also taken the responsibility of many attacks where one of the army captain of Pakistan, along with 4 other army personnel, was also killed. Islamabad had seen this last week only. Islamabad had also seen a terrorist attack, suicide terrorist attack, where one person was also killed. So there has been multiple attacks in the last few days in Pakistan, and as per the advisory, now Saudi is the third country after USA which has advised citizens not to venture out, not to go out in public places and avoid going out because of the security situation, which is under very serious condition. Because Pakistan has also asked the citizens to carry their identification card because of the multiple checkposts that have been created in and around the capital city, so that security checks could be imposed, and any attempt to have any military strike in the capital city could be thwarted.
Well, thank you for your inputs. So clearly intensifying civil or domestic situation in terms of a security situation. Mind you, there is the New Zealand team that is playing test cricket with the Pakistanis, and that's also happening there. Huge concerns that are being raised in multiple cities, especially around Islamabad, and of course going forward towards the tribal areas and the Khyber Pakhtunkhwa region. Have to wind up this edition of The Right Stand, but a big development coming through. China, amid the burgeoning cases and deaths, has actually now cancelled COVID test and quarantine for international arrivals. That's the latest update. But do you really want to travel to China? With that, we call it a wrap. Brass tacks follows.